we need to make a filler back here. This wall is a little bowed out. Actually, it bows out here and then it kind of goes in. So I can't just cut a piece at a certain width and put it in there. We really need to scribe it to the wall. In this case, I'm actually gonna have a piece of trim on top of it, so you're not gonna see it, but I really, I just want it to look nice. So let's scribe this. So the first thing I did was I made myself a reference line, okay? So what I did was I measured off this flat surface and I made a mark. It's 13 and an eighth, 13 and an eighth. So I have 2 marks, okay? Then I use this as my straight edge. And what I'm doing is I'm lining it up with those marks, all right? So this mark here. So now I have a straight edge. And now it's pretty apparent if I run my tape down here, I can see it bumps out here and goes back in there, okay? So what I'm looking for now is the biggest measurement, okay? So if I measure here, I see that it's 5 and 7/8, and I measure down here, actually, it's 5 and 7/8. But in the middle here, this is, I can actually tell by looking at the framing, it bumps in. It bumps in at 5 and 5/8. So what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna take my material, I'm gonna cut it at the biggest width, okay? So that would be 5 and 7/8, okay? So let me cut it at 5 and 7/8, and then we'll come in and scribe it. All right, now we have the piece of wood in here, and we can see if we look closely, there's all these gaps, right? There's almost like a 1/4 inch gap. So now what we do is we are kind of squaring this piece up to a reference line. In this case, I'm gonna use this as my reference here. So I measured here, and I measured here. I made this square. This is square to here. So what we gotta do is we gotta go through this and we gotta determine what is the biggest gap, right? So if I look through here, the biggest gap I have is down here. All right, so 3/16 of a gap. So I mean, we're not talking a big gap here, but we're talking 3/16 of a gap. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go outside. I'm actually gonna make a spacer that's 3/16 wide. So now my 3/16 spacer, I've gone along here and I've added a line. Okay, and you can kind of see, I got to take out the material where it's sticking out. All right, you can see actually what I need to do is take all this material out. Down here, I got to take nothing out, right? This actually fits in there almost perfectly because it's the same size as that gap. All right, so now what we're gonna do is take this outside and we're gonna cut along that line, and that's gonna give us a nice piece to fit and be scribed against the wall. It's gonna look pretty good. Now I'm gonna use what's this called? I'm gonna use a jigsaw, okay? Now I'm just gonna follow this line, all right? Very closely, take my time and cut off the excess. All right, so now it fits in there. It goes into fits in. It actually fills in all those dips and valleys. There's actually a bulge right here in the wall. It looks pretty good. Like I said, I really didn't need to do this. I'm actually gonna add a piece of trim on the top here anyway, so you're not gonna see that. But, I think it's anything worth doing is worth doing kind of like right. I hope this helped you. Making a video on how to build this entire bench. Just made a video on how to install these doors. Putting in some electrical, made a video on how to install these lights that weren't here before. So if you're into that kind of thing, I'm Mike, Family DIY TV. Hey, please hit that subscribe button. Please check out Family DIY TV, and I'm out.